Hey, amazing people. You know it's that time again. The Power of Now, A Guide to Spiritual Enlightenment by Eckhart Tolle. I'm Tracy Lene. I would love it if you like, share, or subscribe. Let's get into reading this amazing book. The mind is essentially a survival machine, attack and defense against other minds, gathering, storing, and analyzing information. This is what it is good at, but it is not at all creative. All true artists, whether they know it or not, create from a place of no mind, from the inner stillness. The mind then gives form to the creative impulses or insights. Even the greatest scientists have reported that their creative breakthroughs came at a time of mental quietude. The surprising result of a nationwide inquiry among Americans, most intimate mathematicians, including Einstein's, to find out their working methods was that thinking plays only a subordinate part in the brief, decisive phase of the creative act itself. So I would say that the simple reason why the majority of scientists are not creative is not because they don't know how to think, because they don't know how to stop thinking. It wasn't through the mind, through thinking, that the miracle that life is on. Let me back it up. It wasn't through the mind, through thinking, that the miracle that is life on earth or your body was created and is being sustained. There is clearly an intelligence at work that is far greater than the mind. How can a single human cell measuring 1/1000th of an inch in diameter contain instructions within its DNA that would fill 1,000 books of 600 pages each? The more we learn about the working body, the more we realize just how vast is the intelligence at work within it and how little we know. When the mind reconnects with that, it becomes a most wonderful tool. It then serves something greater than itself. Emotion, the body's reaction to your mind. That's a subchapter. And this is the question someone asks. What about emotions? I get caught up in my emotions more than I do my mind. Mind, in the way I use the word, is not just thought. It includes your emotions as well as all unconscious mental, emotional, reactive patterns. Emotion arises at the place where mind and body meet. It is the body's reaction to your mind, or you might say, a reflection of your mind in the body. For example, an attack thought or a hostile thought will create a buildup of energy in the body that we call anger. The body is getting ready to fight. The thought that you are being threatened physically or psychologically, causes the body to contract. And this is the physical side of what we call fear. Research has shown that strong emotions even causes changes in the biochemistry of the body. These biochemical changes represent the physical or material aspect of emotion. Of course, you are not usually conscious of all your thought patterns, and it is often only through watching your emotions that you can bring them into awareness. Now, that research showing that strong emotions cause a change in the biochemistry of the body is really important, because if you stay in fight and flight mode, if you stay in fear, if you stay in anger, you are changing your DNA structure. And what then happens is, if you ever notice, if you have been privy to a woman who's been pregnant, who's just been kind of bitchy and evil, and then that baby cries all the time, or she was sad all the time, and that baby takes that on, is because she's changing the DNA patterns in her body. Her molecular structure is being changed. And if you think about that person, you can look at a person who's always angry and they just automatically have a scowl on their face. They've changed so much because they've allowed those emotions to become who they are. And a lot of people live in the emotional state. They say they don't, but they do. If when you talk to a person, they get angry really quick, they're an emotional person. And that's somebody that's living in a bunch of anger and emotional turmoil, that instead of you praying on them, P-R-E-Y, pray for them, P-R-A-Y. The more you identify with your thinking, your likes and dislikes, judgments and interpretations, which is to say less present, you are as watching consciousness, the stronger the emotional energy charge will be, whether you are aware of it or not. And just because you are not aware of something doesn't mean it's not happening. And that thing is, if you're not aware of it and it's happening, it's more dangerous. It's better for somebody to be able to say, I know I am an angry person, and they're aware of that anger, and then, of course, doing something to change it, than acting like they're not angry, but every time somebody speaks, they bite their head off. They're not realizing it, and it's not a good thing. I have educator that I work with, and she's often very curt with everybody. And she'll say, I'm not an angry person, but this person makes me angry. I'm not usually angry. Every time I see her, she angry. So you not usually angry? Girl, every time I see you, you mad. You mad if the wall's pink. I mean, you mad at everything. She's just mad. She's a unhappy, unpleasant to be around person. And I don't think she knows it, but I'm not close enough to her to tell her because I would never get that close to somebody like that because people like that, I stay away from. If you cannot feel your emotions, if you are cut off from them, you will eventually experience them on a purely physical level, as a physical problem, as a symptom. You can look at Louise Hay's book, You Can Heal Your Life, and any of the issues you're dealing with, there is a spiritual reason for it, so you can find it. I just had kidney stones last week, and when I looked it up, it is repressed anger from anything. It could be from something from childhood, but it's holding on to anger and not releasing things in a proper way, because you can release anger in a proper way. I grew up, and as a girl, you never get angry. Don't, just, suck it up. No, you can get angry. You don't have to curse people out and roll your eyes in your head. You can roll them, you can swallow them, but you better control them. We used to say that when I was little. But you really need to let that anger go. And so that anger formed kidney stones in me. And I was able, thank God, to pass those kidney stones and then to deal with the reason they came up so they never come up again. A great deal has been written about this in recent years, so we don't need to go into it here. He's talking about the symptoms of disease. A strong unconscious emotional pattern may even manifest as an external event that appears to just happen for you. For example, I have observed that people who carry a lot of anger inside without being aware of it and without expressing it are more likely to be attacked, verbally or even physically, by other angry people, and often for no apparent reason. They have a strong emanation of anger that certain people pick up subliminally, and that triggers their own latent anger. I want to be careful because I never want to say, oh, well, if you got attacked, it's because you're angry. But I do believe that we attract what we are in that space that we're in, because you can attract somebody that is not good for you when you're not loving yourself as well, when you're not realizing who you are and your inherent right to be loved and enjoy. Then you will meet somebody that's gonna not appreciate you. And this, I do know that there are people who's always seem like there's something going on with them. They're always in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's because they're holding on to so much. If you have difficulty feeling your emotions, start by focusing intention on the inner energy field of your body. Feel the body from within. This will also put you in touch with your emotions. We will explore this more later in detail. Yoga is a great way to explore all of the things going on inside of you. And you don't have to be this great acrobat to do it. You can take a gentle yoga class. You can learn to breathe, yoga breathing, and just sit and deal with that. Just sit in that yoga breathing. You can do yin yoga. You can do one of the yogas that's really good to do if you're just trying to get in touch with your emotions would be restorative yoga, because the way the different poses that the instructor will put you in will help you release certain things. And the hips carry a lot of our unforgiveness, so you may get into a hip pose, a pigeon pose, or a line on your back pigeon pose, and start to really think of the things that used to happen or happen to you that you didn't let go of, that you haven't forgiven. And the reason it's coming up because you're in pigeon pose, and that stored anger, that stored unforgiveness, which can be bitterness or anger, is right there in those hips. This is somebody asking a question. You say that an emotion is the mind's reflection in the body, but sometimes there's a conflict between the two. The mind says no, while the emotion says yes, or the other way around. And he answers, if you really want to know your mind, the body will always give you a truthful reflection. So look at the emotion, or rather feel it in your body. If there is an apparent conflict between them, the thought will be the lie. The emotion will be the truth. Not the ultimate truth of who you are, but the relative truth of your state of mind at that time. I read somewhere that lots of women who experience being child molested as a child, raped or molested as a child, gain a lot of weight when they're getting older. And they say it's because they want to not be looked at for their body. So they feel that they gain a lot of weight, nobody's going to look at them because they're overly heavy. So it's a defense mechanism to keep their bodies protected. I know that a friend of mine who told me about someone else, I'm going to be very vague, but their childhood trauma resulted in them being very covered all the time with 3 and 4 layers of clothes at all times. And I believe that they did that because they didn't want anybody to be able to get to them quickly. So they wore layers and layers and layers of clothing to protect themselves from attack. It's very sad that someone have to do that. Conflict between surface thoughts and unconscious mental processes is certainly common. You may not yet be able to bring your unconscious mind activity into awareness as thoughts, but it will always be reflected in the body as an emotion. And of this you can become aware. To watch an emotion in this way is basically the same as listening to or watching a thought, which I described earlier. The only difference is that while a thought is in your head, an emotion has a strong physical component, and so it is primarily felt in the body. You can then allow the emotion to be there without being controlled by it. You no longer are the emotion. You are the watcher, the observer, the observing presence. If you practice this, all that is unconscious in you will be brought into the light of consciousness. This is another, you guys aren't going to believe it if I told you, but I'm going to risk you thinking I'm a little do-do-do-do-do-do. But a person just was on the screen, but there's nobody in the room but me. I know that my ancestors are here. I did a meditation, and I know that some of them are here, and I literally saw them come right here, right here, and block the bird on the wall. I know I saw it. I just thought I'd tell you, and you may think I'm crazy, but it's okay. People have thought worse things about me, but that was really, I saw them go, and then they jumped back when I looked. Anywho, I do believe in other realms. Okay, this is the question. So observing our emotions is as important as observing our thoughts. Yes. Make it a habit to ask yourself, what's going on inside of me at this moment? That question will point you in the right direction, but don't analyze, just watch. Say that again. That question will point you in the right direction, but don't analyze, just watch. Focus your attention within. Feel the energy of the emotion. If there's no emotion present, take your attention more deeply into the inner energy field of your body. It is the doorway into being. When you know you are angry, I find that this works for me and it may work for you. Go off somewhere. Give yourself some time that nobody can disturb you and tell that anger, okay, you got 10 minutes to speak. What did you want to say? And let that anger come out of you. Usually the anger just wants to be recognized. The truth of it is, the indignation of it is, the self-righteousness of it, whatever it is, that anger wants an opportunity to present itself and present its case. And when you allow it to do that, usually it's like, okay, I'm good now. You can go back to being yourself. But when you repress it, which I did for a long time, it comes out in kidney stones. And you may say, well, if you do that, why you had kidney stones? I didn't do that with everything. I did that with some things. There were some things I was comfortable enough releasing the anger, and some things I was trying to stuff it all the way back down because I knew that if I dealt with it, I'd have to make changes that I wasn't ready to make. So just don't deal with it. Just act like it don't exist, the big old elephant in the room. An emotion usually represents an amplified and energized thought pattern. And because of its often overpowering energetic charge, it is not easily initially to stay present enough. Let's start that over. An emotion usually represents an amplified and energized thought pattern. And because of its often overpowering energetic charge, it is not easy initially to stay present enough to be able to watch it. It wants to take you over, and it usually succeeds unless there is enough presence in you. If you are pulled into unconscious identification with the emotion through lack of presence, which is normal, the emotion temporarily becomes you. You become the angry person, like that teacher I was telling you about, just always got a scowl on her face. Often a vicious circle builds up between your thinking and the emotion. They feed each other. The thought pattern creates a magnified reflection of itself in the form of an emotion, and the vibrational frequency of the emotion keeps feeding the original thought pattern. By dwelling mentally on the situation, event, or person that is the perceived cause of the emotion, the thought feeds energy to the emotion, which in turn energizes the thought pattern, and so on. And if you remember back when we read the four agreements, the first one being be impeccable with your word. The second one, don't take anything personal. The third one, don't make any assumptions. And the fourth one, do your best at everything. What usually happens is the situation is perceived only in a way that you think it should be because you're pulling up past experiences and what you think a person was saying when they said that. That may not even be what they were saying. Oftentimes, if we text somebody and they don't text us back, like before we hit send, they send in a message, go, oh, I guess they don't want to be bothered. And that's because you don't feel worthy of somebody being bothered, or because you do that to other people. Whatever the reason is, it has nothing to do with the other person. So that emotion that you well up in 30 seconds it takes them to text you back, you didn't ended the relationship, you done moved on from the friendship, you didn't say fuck you, you done done all of that in those 45 seconds before they text you back, hey, in the middle of something, let me get back with you. And then you go, oh, okay. Because what we have to realize is that everybody has a life, and they're not just sitting around waiting to be in yours. They may be doing something in their life, and you might have to wait around until they get a moment for you, and that's okay. Basically, all emotions are modifications of one primordial undifferentiated, I'm going to start over. Basically, all emotions are modifications of one primordial, undifferentiated emotion that has its origin in the loss of awareness of who you are beyond name and form. Because of its undifferentiated nature. What is that word? Undifferentiated. I don't even pretend like I know every word, and I don't feel bad that I don't know how to pronounce this because it's and then the word different and then tiated. Undifferentiated nature. It is hard to find a name that precisely describes this emotion. Fear comes close, but apart from a continuous sense of threat, it also includes a deep sense of abandonment and incompleteness. It may be best to use a term that is undifferentiated as the basic emotion and simply call it pain. One of the main tasks of the mind is to fight or remove that emotional pain, which is one of the reasons for its incessant activity. But all it can ever achieve is to cover up temporarily. In fact, the harder the mind struggles to get rid of the pain, the greater the pain. The mind can never find the solution, nor can it afford to allow you to find the solution, because it of itself is an intrinsic part of the problem. Imagine a chief of police trying to find an arsonist when the arsonist is the chief of police. You will not be free from that pain until you cease to derive a sense of self from identification within the mind, which is to say, from ego. The mind is then toppled from its place of power, and being reveals itself to you as your true nature. Yes, I know what you're going to ask, and there's the question. I was going to ask, what about positive emotions such as love and joy? They are inseparable from your natural state of interconnectedness with being. See, joy and bliss and love, they are just who you are. The other things are illusions that we experience because we take on an ego, which is edging God out. But they are not natural. It is not natural to run around here being mad at people. It's not natural to run around here lying, cheating, stealing, playing the fool. None of that stuff is natural. Those are things that happen because we step out of the natural state of God. And many people blame everybody else but looking at themselves and say, I did it because I don't have self-worth. I don't love myself enough to step up in the realm of love on all levels. We want to blame the white man. We want to blame the black man. We want to blame the China man. We want to blame the Arab man. We want to blame everybody else instead of looking in the mirror and say, hey, check this out. You the problem. And then deal with that. That's what I'm doing now. And it works. Glimpses of love and joy or brief moments of deep peace are possible whenever a gap occurs in the stream of thought. For most people, such gaps happen rarely and only accidentally, in moments where the mind is rendered speechless, sometimes triggered by great beauty, extreme physical exertion, or even great danger. Suddenly there's inner stillness, and within that stillness there's a subtle but intense joy. There is love and there is peace. Many people will tell you right when they thought they were going to die from something, They surrender and they feel the most beautiful state of peace because they've let go of all pretenses, they've let go of everything, and they've just accepted love. And then they don't die and they write a book about it, and then 5 or 6 years later, they're right back to doing the same dumb shit because even though they wrote the book, they're still human and they're still doing human stuff. Anyway, we're going to stop for now. And he just said that such moments are short-lived, and get back into this tomorrow because the data shows that anything more than 20 minutes, nobody's listening. And I want to engage you, and I want to be able to have us, read this book together. Well, me read it and you listen, and I hope you're enjoying it. I'm really glad that Angel Studios said to do this book because this is a really good book. I wanted to read it for a while because I want to stay in the now moment. I told you yesterday and the day before yesterday, when you get out of sync with the now moment, start pointing at things and saying what they are so you can come back to the now moment. Maybe you're a person who needs to stand in front of the mirror and look at yourself and just give yourself praise and wonders, say wonderful things about yourself to pull you back into the present moment. Whatever you need to do to stay present, come into the present moment because that's where the magic is. All of the magic is in the right now. The past ain't got no magic. It's over. And the future, we don't know what that magic looks like because it ain't here yet. Your magic is in the right now. So enjoy it. I will see you tomorrow. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise.